folks, grab a seat and pour your drink neat as Whiskers and Whiskeys presents Tales of the Trophies, Season 3, the Big 12's greatest rivalries. I'm EJ. Mike, unfortunately, had something that came up last minute. So it is just me and two lovely guests. We have one guest that has been on here a couple of times and a new face to introduce as well. So we have Jimmy and Kyle. How's it going, fellas?
Cheers. How you doing, EJ? Thanks for having me back. Kyle, glad to have you here.
I'm excited. I've heard a lot of good things. I've been listening to the podcast for the last, basically a year that I've known you. So I'm excited to be here for the first time.
Yeah, I'm interested. It's football's back. We survived, right? Like we finally got back. Both our baseball teams blow, even though mine's a little better.
Mine doesn't. I'm an Orioles fan.
Oh, he's an Orioles fan. Never mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're looking great this year until the whatever the brothers' names are gonna sell all your players next year.
The Angelos.
Yeah, that's right. The Angelos.
What really hurts is losing King Felix the other night. Our closer got hurt, making a Cy Young run, but it is what it is. But yes, football is back, and that's what matters.
Yeah, so we had week 0 happen this past weekend, which was not a great slate of games, and shocking that the Pac-12 managed to bury their last their last opener and the Heisman Trophy winner, right? They managed to keep them off TV for all of us outside of the Pacific time zone, which stunk, but you know what? It didn't even matter. I threw on Ohio and San Diego State just because football is back.
Yeah, me and Kyle met up, and my family has a little bit of Navy ties, and Kyle has a lot of Navy ties to his family, but we just kind of went to watch Notre Dame, and I got a nice live bet of minus 27.5 for Notre Dame, and that was never in question. So got a little money, and Kyle had a first quarter. What was your Notre Dame minus 6.5 in the first quarter, and that wasn't even close either.
Yeah, so. I had Notre Dame minus 6.5 first quarter, and then I also had the pregame minus 20.5 for Notre Dame. I mean, yeah, like Jimmy said, my grandfather went to the Naval Academy. We grew up having season tickets to the Naval Academy and all that kind of stuff. So I've been surrounded by Navy for my whole life, and it's funny as the game went on yesterday, like I was getting texts from my grandpa watching the game, and then about halftime the text stopped, and didn't get one until about like 3 hours after the game. So needless to say, he was not happy with his results.
Yeah, I have a certain kind of feeling about watching Notre Dame play football. I mean, beyond the fact that they should be in the Big Ten, and it was always one of the most fun games every year, but they still have some sour grapes over the Big Ten. But more importantly, Audric Estime is Estime. I don't know if that's how you say it, but he actually committed to Michigan State and flipped at the very, very, very last second. So,
nice.
Hate watching him run the ball because he should be a smart.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he looked good. And more importantly, 1-0 so far on this college football betting season. So take that with me coming into week 1.
I was actually, that's actually a great segue into our it's just reminding everyone, and kind of we've added a new wrinkle to our college Pickem challenge. I will say I was very disciplined this week and did not bet. I bet some conference exactas based on my college football preview that I gave, and who I think is going to be in the conference championships and win them. And I think you can do all of them still. Oh, probably not anymore because week 0 played. But it was actually kind of a nice thing. You could pick like, I don't know, Florida State over Clemson, and that was a certain amount, or Florida State over Miami, and you could do all these different exactas. So I placed a couple of sprinkles over my predictions, but I haven't actually bet a game yet. But I think that's definitely going to change.
What was your hot take conference championship pick?
That's a great one. I don't like USC, so that was hot take-ish. I don't even have them in my championship game. So I guess Washington in that conference. With the Beavers, I've an affinity for those Oregon State Beavers getting to the championship. I think they have
DJ.
DJ I think is going to be okay. I think he'll isn't going to be asked to do what he was at Clemson. They have one of the best offensive lines and run the ball, so I think he'll be okay. I was more concerned about the defense. They lost a good amount, but they have a really good defensive coordinator. So I don't know. I just think that Pac-12 has a lot of teams that are those top 4 teams will cannibalize each other. So it's hard for me to put anyone in the playoff, but there's some really good teams, some really veteran quarterbacks in that conference. And of course we can't watch most of the games. So what a great way for them to go out. So I'd say that I'd say the only other one is I like LSU this year. I think I think they'll get out of the West. I think Georgia is replacing a ton. I know they're going to replace them with some great talent, but they lost some generational captains, and they honestly sleepwalk all the way till that SEC championship game. So if that's the first game you're playing a real team, yeah. So that's probably, I guess, my biggest takes. But I mean, nothing crazy. We'll see. There's just a lot of, I think with college football in general this year, there's a lot of these, blue blood programs that are all replacing quarterbacks. And I mean, sure, they're replacing them with highly touted recruits, but until you see them get on the field, and some of them even play their first real college snaps, you can't really bank on teams like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. Like these guys had a lot of production they have to replace. So got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think the Big Ten will be interesting too, a little bit with just how Ohio State and Michigan have been the last couple of years, and how everything seems like it's set up for Michigan. But I think a little bit of sleepers, Penn State. Just I think they're pretty talented and have a lot coming back too. But I think how it goes is it's like I think Penn State has to go to Ohio State, and then Michigan comes to Penn State, and I think like Penn State's played like Michigan all right at home, but they can't play them away at all. So
no, yeah, that's actually something Mike and I talked about. That was I agree. I think if there was any team to potentially keep Michigan out of Indy and then ultimately out of the playoff, I think it's Penn State more than Ohio State. Just because the way they play. Like Michigan has broken Ohio State, right? Like physically. And I don't think Ohio State they have the best receivers. Don't get me wrong. Like they're a really good team, but their style of play is still, they didn't get any tougher on the offensive line and no tougher on the defensive line. So Penn State likes to do both. Like they had the best defense in the Big Ten last year. They'll have it again this year. The biggest question for them is, again, they're replacing 10th year senior Sean Clifford with a 5-star kid that's supposed to be the man, but until he plays, you just don't know. So I like Penn State too, but yeah, you're right. So I think Michigan's only won 2 out of the last 7 in Happy Valley. So you could very well see a round robin situation where Michigan beats Ohio State at home, Ohio State beats Penn State at home, and Penn State beats Michigan at home. Yeah. And in that case, Michigan gets through because 3-way tiebreaker, the strength of schedule, and Penn State has Northwestern on their schedule. So that's already enough to kill them. And then it'll be head to head versus Michigan, Ohio State. And in that scenario, Michigan would have beaten them. So yeah, interesting. But that's the thing. Like it was really hard when I was going through my playoff picks because I could see a ton of 1-loss teams or maybe a really good 2-loss team. And it was really hard because some of these teams actually play each other. So really had to take a stand and say, this team's going to beat that team to get to the playoff. But so College Pick'em Challenge. Let's get back. I'm gonna drive us back on track. So last year we did this. Jimmy, you joined in a little late, so you didn't really have a great chance at winning. Kyle, I know you had talked about when I saw you after the season last year that you might be interested in joining this year. But we're gonna do it again. So our College Pick'em Challenge, it's gonna be the same concept where Mike and I will go head to head, but we will also go together against all of our listeners. So each week you'll pick three picks, 3 college spreads, and you just submit it to us. Just send it to us on our Instagram page, and we will keep track of them. And at the you get 1 point for guessing right. And at the end of the year, whoever between Mike and I has the most points will buy the other a bottle. And then if any of our fans beat either one of us, then we will get them a bottle of their choice within reason. Sorry, no Pappy here. We're not sponsored. If we had some sponsorships, maybe, but no Pappy. But we will this year. We're gonna add a new wrinkle, and I think you guys are gonna like it. I thought about it like probably midway through last year, but didn't want to incorporate it mid-season. But we're gonna add a risk it for the biscuit pick. So what that's gonna be is if there is a game that you love on a Thursday or a Friday, or maybe even you love some action. Well, once we get into some lovely action, that's like Wednesdays, sometimes even Tuesdays towards the end of the year. If you love one of those games, or maybe you're already planning on betting one of those games, you can make it your risk it for the biscuit bet for that week. So what that means is if you get it right, then on Saturday, you can still have 3 more picks. So that gives you the potential to have 4 that week. If you get it wrong, then you only get 1 pick on Saturday. Ooh. So this is a good way for you to either, if you're behind at the end of the year, to try and catch up, or I know I loved a couple of bets throughout the year that, didn't fall on Saturday. So maybe that just happens. And in that case, you just got to determine whether or not you really love it or you don't. So, so we'll add that risk for the biscuit. You can use it as many times throughout the year, but obviously if you get them wrong, you can really get yourself behind pretty quick. So an exciting addition.
I like that.
Yeah. And I've heard some fans, I don't know, just, around the street, like if any of that merch is back out there, you guys had a sweet trucker hat you gave away one weekend, and if any of those come back, I'm sure the people will get going for that as well.
Yes, we actually do have that's a good point. We do have some hats left over from last year, and we've explored some additional merchandising things. So we'll keep you guys updated on all that.
Nice.
Love it.
Maybe I'll take a trucker hat over a bottle of liquor. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I
don't know.
He's confident, EJ. He's confident.
It's a lovely hat. No, it's exciting. I like doing it. I think I told you guys this last year. I used to do a Pickem challenge at my work, kind of like a fantasy football thing, but for college Pickem. And I stopped after 2 years because I was just burning money. Like I was horrific at it. Like it's easier to pick who's going to win, but like to actually get some of these spreads right or wrong. Now, again, like I wasn't really paying close enough attention to, and I hadn't really been a big gambler back then, but it was pretty bad. And last year it wasn't that much better. So I'm looking to have a rebound here.
It happens. Can't win them all.
No, you can't. Okay, so why don't we get to the episode? So today we're talking about the Keg of Nails. Such an exciting trophy, an awesome one played between Cincinnati Bearcats and the Louisville Cardinals. And as you can see by our guests, if you're on Spotify, you can't see them, but if you're on YouTube, you can. Jimmy and Kyle are both Louisville alums, and they are rocking their apparels. So we're gonna have a great episode. But before then, we like to do some trivia. I can honestly say, now going into the 3rd season, it's been tough. I was talking to Mike about this. It's been tough for me to come up with some new ideas. So I have some ideas now. It's gonna get a little bit beyond what I was doing last year, but last year was very like geographically based trivia. So if it was a couple of states playing each other, or schools from different states, it was, trivia based on one of those states, or definitely if it was an in-state rivalry, we'd go through that. So we did go through Kentucky because we did Louisville and Kentucky last year. So I decided to take a pivot this year, and these are gonna more than likely, more times than not, have anything to do with sports, or nothing to do with the schools, but they will have something to do broadly with the rivalry. So in this case, I already said I did Kentucky, so Cincinnati's in Ohio. So I thought we'd do, I don't know why it was on my mind, but I was like, why don't we do some Rock and Roll Hall of Fame trivia? So I want to see. I know you guys, and that's the thing. I know you two and Mike are, we all love some classic rock, some music. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I kind of designed this to be pretty difficult in the hopes that there was 3 of you guys. So I think what I'm gonna do is what we're gonna do is I have 10 names, so 10 questions essentially, and they are all, I want you to be, I'm going to give you the name of the person, and you're going to tell me which band who is inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that they are the lead singer for.
Oh gosh.
And I will promise you're going to know all of these bands very well, but I can tell you that when I was looking at some of these names, it definitely, I knew a few of them, but not all of them. So I think to make this a little easier, and so that we don't take like 90 minutes on this alone, I'm going to let you guys ask me both one question about like a, kind of 20 questions type thing. If you guys feel like you need to. Fair?
This is right up Kyle's alley.
I'm not good with the, like, you play a song, like, I know who the band is and I know the name of the song. The lead singers is gonna be a little more difficult for me. But
I'm gonna go over on this.
They do call me Kyle Loki, so it's like,
okay,
I'm pretty good at that. But lead singers, it might be tough. So
I know,
kind of embarrassing for me.
Well, it's just like I said, it was one of those things where I was going through these bands because I made sure they're all in the Hall of Fame, just so that it was like really known that these are very, very well known bands. But some of these names, I was like, ugh, I don't even know this. So let's start off. So the first name here, Brian Johnson. Who is he the lead singer of?
Brian Johnson.
And again, you guys can both ask me one question to try and get closer to what the name of this band is.
What year is this band popular?
I know that was going to be asked. Let's go late 70s, early 80s. And if I'm wrong, sorry for all you music people out there. I might be a little bit wrong. I think I'm probably pretty right.
And you did say they're all classic rock, right?
I will tell you if they're not, but yes, most of these are, I would say, classic rock. This one is definitely classic rock, louder rock, and yes, very famous.
I think I have a guess.
Okay.
I'm going with AC/DC.
1 for 1, Kyle.
Go.
Brian Johnson.
Because I just remember, like, I'm sure you guys have seen School of Rock, and like, basically, what's his name? Jack Black's character is basically like mocking Brian Johnson from AC/DC throughout that whole movie. So that was okay.
There you go. Look at 1 for 1. Already doing better than I thought you would, to be honest with you. All right, next one, Syd Barrett.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Similar time period as well.
Syd Barrett.
And I can say that they're known for having quite a few long songs.
Okay.
Any other questions to get you closer to?
Long songs. I mean,
it's not Leonard Skinner, right? That's a long song.
It is not Leonard Skinner.
Okay,
there's my guess. There, I guess something.
I mean, long songs make me think like Led Zeppelin, but like I know
it is not Led Zeppelin. Those names I actually recognize, Robert Plant and
Robert Plant and stuff. Yeah, but I don't.
You're on the right track. I mean, it's another one of those.
I'll go with the Allman Brothers.
That is incorrect, Jimmy. You already edged it. Syd Barrett is the lead singer of Pink Floyd.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I know. Okay. All right, this one I can. I have a really good hint though, but I'm going to save it to see if you guys are really struggling, because once I give you this hint, I mean, it should make it easier. But his name is Donald Fagen.
That makes me think of the guy from, what's his name? Donald from Scrubs.
Faison.
Donald Fagen. All right, give me your clue.
Okay. This group is in the yacht rock genre, and it is if you go to any yacht rock playlist, there's probably like 6 of their songs on it. And I believe both of them are dead now. There you go, both of them. So that kind of tells you.
What's his name again?
Donald Fagen.
Donald Fagen.
I don't I don't know why I want to say Steely Dan, but they're not really yacht rock.
I would 100% say they're yacht rock, and it is Steely Dan. They're nice, soft. They're not, you know, they're not. Actually, it's only funny because I was wanting to listen to yacht rock the other day, and it was like 7 of them were for Steely Dan. So
Nice. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. I guess my dad loves Steely Dan. We listen to Steely Dan basically every morning in the car. Also AC/DC. My dad's he's a coach. He coaches gymnastics, and his thing before every meet he would listen to AC/DC Back in Black, and Steely Dan would be on those playlists and stuff too. So that's cool.
Yeah, Steely Dan is my father-in-law's favorite band, and actually I think he just saw them a few years ago when it was just the one guy. The one guy has been dead for a while. But yeah, he loves some Steely
I like
Dan.
how this is going on, and like I'm getting completely set up because Kyle's background is like album covers, and I'm here for sports. I'm just kidding. This is
I got sports in front of me.
Well, you got to remember, I had this in mind with Mike as well, but I remember even when we were at the lake and there would be like music coming on, it would be like, oh, who sings that song, right? So, and Jimmy, you pride yourself in having useless trivia. You host a trivia, for God's sake, so I don't want to hear it. I didn't know about that until recently, by the way.
Kyle's our #1 seed in our trivia team. Apple Bottom Geniuses, come see us.
Thursday nights, Ornery Brewery.
All right, number 4 here. So this one, I admit, is one if you will win this if you know this one.
Ooh, okay.
Because he had, so the artist name, his name is Paul Hewson, Hewson.
Paul Hewitt, old
No.
Georgia Tech, George Mason basketball coach. Great. Yeah.
So the one guess, so this is more of a, this is actually a time period I don't know if I'm fairly certain this is a late 80s, definitely 90s and early 2000s, still a band today. And Paul Hewson does not go by that. He has a very distinct nickname.
Oh.
So that's why I'd be very shocked if you knew this, because he does not go by that.
You said they're still making music right now, or they're still?
They're still touring. I'd say they definitely made music in the 2010s. I'm not sure if they have any new albums, but they're still pretty more recent than your AC/DCs and Pink Floyds.
I'm gonna go with Creed.
What's your guess, Jimmy?
Metallica.
Okay, it is not Metallica. It is not Creed. I don't think Creed's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Paul Hewson goes by the singular name Bono, and he is the lead singer of U2.
Wow.
I know. That one was tough.
I feel like people should know that though, but yeah.
All right, number 5. Her name is Ann Wilson.
Okay.
Fleetwood Mac?
No.
What's her name?
I'm gonna go with
Stevie Nicks.
Heart.
Is what? Heart? Yes. Nancy and Ann Wilson make up the Heart group.
Yeah.
Good gosh.
Ooh, Barracuda.
Yes. All right. This one, Robert Smith. This is 80s pop-ish. Pop rock.
I feel like this should be easy, but
And I will say, all right, well, we'll see. Ask me questions first, because I have one that I have like a thing that will make it a little easier. A little
pop rock, you said?
Yeah, 80s. So I wouldn't call it like, he's not on the same, like that band isn't on the same level as like your AC/DC and stuff like that. It's much more of like a poppy.
Let's go. That name sounds so generic that it's like I feel like it should be popping out at me.
But ask me a question.
My question, I can't even think of a question. Is it like,
how about this? They are not an American band.
Okay.
They are a British band. I know that doesn't really help. It narrows it down a little bit, but it's still not the British singers. And this lead singer is also known for wearing makeup.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kiss, but that's not really like a hard. They're not really pop, but no, and that's okay. No, that was a dumb answer.
Any guesses, Jimmy?
No idea.
No idea. Robert Smith is the lead singer of The Cure.
Ooh.
Yes, I know. That one's a little. Like I said, I was surprised that some of these were. I mean, I know who The Cure is, but that was
Right.
Hall of Fame. All right, 4 more guys. So Joe Elliott.
Well, that was one of Jimmy and I's fraternity brothers.
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
remember
this
him
one-
being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
This one's older. This is an 80s, very famous 80s band, 80s rock and roll.
What?
Big,
You say
big hair.
80s?
Big hair.
Def Leppard.
It is Def Leppard.
Boom.
Jimmy, you're not doing so great. I listen, I have faith in you in these last ones though. Okay.
Okay. Got it. Is it
I will
sports?
say number 8 here. This name is pretty well known. So this one I would be shocked if you didn't know. But
Oh gosh.
who is Neil Peart, the lead singer of?
Oh, come on. Jimmy, think of I Love You, Man.
Yeah, it's that's
I just-
Rush.
Yes, it is.
Let's
Slapping
Baby.
das Bass.
go. Yes.
Get some Neil Peart all up in me.
Which is
I
on
like
brand
how
for
we-
the text.
Yeah, I was gonna say
right.
unironically we sent that movie.
Movie quotes to each other last night.
And actually, I did this before that too, so it's not even like that influenced it. That was just a happy coincidence.
That's fun.
There it is.
All right, last
So,
2.
yeah.
James Hetfield.
Okay, so I know this one.
Okay.
I want to give Jimmy a chance.
Yes,
James
Jimmy.
Hetfield. What year?
What do you say? 90s?
He's
Yeah. 90s. You may have already said the name before.
yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
Oh, Metallica.
It is.
Hey, I'm on the board.
I'm on the board. All right, last one. Ronnie Van Zant.
Oh, this is
I also have one that my clue will.
I want to say Alabama, or is it Leonard Skinner? One of those two, I think.
I also said Leonard Skinner as a guest.
You
Yes,
did.
so I
I want to say
answer.
Skinner.
Correct.
It is Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
There you go. So it's actually funny when you said Metallica and Leonard Skinner, and I was like,
Yeah.
not yet,
Not
Jimmy.
yet.
Soon.
All right, guys. So that was trivia. That one was admittedly hard because I didn't give any choices. Kyle, you did great, really. I mean, you got
I
at
don't
least
think I
half
did
of
too
them.
bad.
No.
Luckily, my dad wasn't here to hear some of those answers I get.
Yeah, I was just thinking like my father-in-law probably knew most of these too.
I was
Probably-
gonna say my father-in-law would have been great to have
Oh,
on.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's good too.
All right, guys. So let's get back to this trophy. So typically my first question would be what's your first impressions of the trophy or what your guesses are is actually what we, Mike and I did last year. However, all of us involved here knows what this trophy looks like. So why don't you guys just kind of describe to the listeners what this bad boy looks like?
I'll go ahead and lead off, Kyle, and then I'll let you kind of add on to whatever you want to add on to. So this is a sweet trophy. I mean, it's not really a trophy when you think of, your modern day trophy, but this is what looks like it's a barrel. I almost have one in. I wish I could show the viewers I have something very similar to what it looks like, but this is like your modern day standard like wooden barrel that's probably I don't know, about 4 feet tall off the ground. I don't know if that, but it has on this barrel it has like a black trim that's like I'm sure like a metal trim that kind of goes all the way down in different sections, 4 different sections. And what's really cool about the trophy is it's painted Louisville Cardinals on one side with the like old school looking Louisville helmet, and on the other side it says the Cincinnati Bearcats. And one thing when I was kind of looking at it that I thought was really cool is it's like kind of got the Louisville wins on one side and the Cincinnati wins on the other side, and it just says the year and the score. And that's pretty cool because like if it's on your side, you're obviously the one that has the higher score in it. It's got it's got some handles. I think the handles are just like kind of made out of, it's not a metal handle. It's like a fabricated metal, or sorry, fabricated handle, but it's pretty sweet. It does not, well, actually, I'm not going to say too much because I want you to give your history behind it, but it's a Keg of Nails. Not sure the weight of it and all. I don't know if you have that, but Kyle, I don't know if you have any more you want to add on to it.
Yeah, I mean, dead on. What I think stands out about it is the fact that, it's not a trophy. It's like it is a barrel, like a wooden barrel. It kind of has that like hand painted look where it's like, like it looks like a bunch of sorority girls went and like painted like a cooler, how they used to do back in the day, and like, but it basically just looks like, back in the day they didn't have coolers and they had these big old barrels, and they just like a bunch of sorority girls just drew on it. It's nothing fancy, but it, like, I think that's what makes it cool and unique, that it's, and obviously the Louisville area, the Ohio River, alone like has so much history around bourbon and stuff, and barrels are a huge thing in our area, in that area. So I like it. I do like the two sides. It has the Louisville helmet. It has the Bearcat claw, whatever a Bearcat is. But it's cool. I love it.
Yeah, I definitely mismeasured that because I forgot I put extension legs on my barrel, so it's definitely not
Like 3 feet.
4 feet. A lot smaller than that. But go ahead, EJ. What else you got for us?
Yeah, so I was just going to say also one thing at the top of so you guys talked about the sides. So at the top it says rival battle for the nail keg, and it has that painted on the top with a big red circle on the top as well. So very cool. But this history, so I'll tell you a little bit about the history of this. So the first matchup was in 1929. And that was won by Cincinnati 7-0. And the Bearcats won the first 12 matchups of this rivalry. So it really got off to a rocky
start. Can I pause
start
you for a second there? This is just like the stupid Kentucky Louisville rivalry, where it was like Louisville didn't have a team for the first like 15 matchups. So this is very skewed, but continue.
It's like our basketball team was poly playing because we didn't have a football team.
So the overall series is Cincinnati leads at 30 wins to 23 losses to 1 tie. So it is significant. Louisville has significantly closed that gap. And I'd be curious to see kind of what modern day, because a lot of these rivalries have that, like Michigan State has that. Like when you look at the rivalry, once Michigan State joined the Big Ten and black people were allowed to play, it's a lot closer than, obviously back in the day when they were an agricultural college and just had a bunch of farmers on the field. So, so this game was played regularly from 1929, not necessarily every year, but pretty regularly, all the way up until 2014 when Louisville joined the ACC. And then it was not played, as you guys both know, until last year when the two schools just happened to meet in a bowl game with the Fenway Bowl. And I will say that was also an interesting time because Satterfield decided to leave. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys got the better of that deal when with the coach swap with Purdue.
Oh yeah, we talked about like all of Louisville Nation was just kind of, we were, I think, pretty close to like wanting, I mean, at least the fans, because he's kind of, for me, he's rode some recruits from Petrino and kind of had some success there, and then he never could have success against Kentucky, even when it seemed like we should beat Kentucky. So it was like we kind of wanted to like have him fired, like we were kind of tired of him. And then we got Cincinnati blessed us out of nowhere to come over and just hire this coach from us, so we didn't have to have a buyout, none of that crap. And yes, I believe we did win that situation to get Brom back over to Louisville.
I guess we also have to thank Wisconsin for taking Luke Fickell first, and then Cincinnati coming in and swooping and sat. So
yeah, no, it'll be interesting kind of what the future of this looks like, because obviously Cincinnati is going to have a few down years, it seems, in the Big 12, but it's really hard to count them out. I mean, they're definitely a stepping school, right? But a stepping stone school, but they've had some pretty successful coaches at Cincinnati over the last couple decades that have gone on, including my own favorite coach, Mark D'Antonio. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to continue that. Ohio's a very talent-rich recruiting state, which is how Kentucky's had some success pulling some kids from there, and obviously, I'm sure Louisville has dug into that being so close as well. So, yeah, so it's interesting. You kind of obviously Ohio State gets dibs, and then after that, there's plenty of talent to be had in Ohio. But okay, so let me give you guys a little bit more of this history. So the first game, like I had mentioned, was played in October of 1929, which is when the keg was actually introduced. So the Keg of Nails is a replica of a keg used in ship nails to hold ship nails on a ship, and is believed, at least from what I read, and I can admit to you guys, had mentioned it before we started recording, and to all of our listeners here, there wasn't a ton of history, like research, to be found. Like, it was hard to really nail down like who came up with the idea, and if there's been controversies throughout the years with it. Like, some of these rivalry trophies have had all of that kind of thing mixed in, and this one, it was really hard to find information. So not to say that there isn't a rich history, but it's just not well recorded, at least on the interwebs. But it is believed that fraternity chapters on both schools initiated the initial exchange of the keg, and it signifies the winning team being tough as nails, and that was where it got its Keg of Nails. So
That's
the game,
sweet.
yeah.
Like
So the game became an annual rivalry in 1966, since both schools previously competed in the Missouri Valley Conference, Conference USA, and the Big East. So there's plenty of conference rivalry there, which is pretty fun. And then obviously, recent days, ever since 2014, when Louisville took the big step into the ACC, it has not been they've not been able to schedule each other. Unfortunately, it looks like now that Cincinnati's in the Big 12, it's probably going to make it even harder to find time for this game. But hopefully they do find some time. And really, the last thing I have about the trophy is that it was rumored. So the present keg, currently, with, like you guys had talked about, the logos and the scores, allegedly, it's rumored that it's not the original. There's plenty of sources that says the original keg was misplaced during construction at the University of Louisville.
Oh, that's the part that I wanted to see to make sure that you had. And I think this is hilarious and awesome at the same time, because
Yes, give us more
some,
information.
oh, well, there's got to be some 502 Louisvillian that just came in for a construction job and is like, I am taking that. It has some sweet Keg of Nails in his house. But yeah, I've got that too. I had said, however, Louisville lost. I found a Yahoo article where this guy ranked this as the second best trophy in college football. Which
wow.
What was number one?
Well, hold on. I'm going to quote this to make sure I don't mispronounce what he said, but he just said it was lost during the original trophy was lost during construction of its athletic facilities. However, it's never been found. He's like, how cool it would be if the original one is an actual Keg of Nails, and that that would be awesome. But the other part about it that I had read is it's never been kind of proven what's been inside of it. But like the one that's the replica now, I think doesn't have anything in it. But it'd be, I think, and I'm just gonna say it'd be even more sweet of a trophy if there is nails in it, if you're tough as nails. But yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, oh, of course it's Louisville that lost it. But I think that's kind of cool, because I do think there's just some fool out there somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky, that's got this in his basement right now.
100%.
Probably one of my cousins.
I mean, is it a rivalry trophy if it doesn't get misplaced? I mean, I think that's like a prerequisite to
or like one of the teams
trying
to steal it or something like that. Yeah, like it's normally how it goes.
So I kind of, like you said, there's not a ton of history. I think that kind of gives it a little cool spin, that like,
sure,
oh, kind of a mystery out there, that there is like the actual, out there, and some Louisville guys just holding on to it. And Cincinnati will never get that back.
No, yeah, and I love, yeah, like you said, it was Louisville that technically lost it, but it's always fun when like schools blame each other for things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so why don't we, I definitely want to get your guys' take, because from an outsider's view,
Mhm.
I mean, I've obviously heard of the Keg of Nails, and before Luke Fickell, I mean, maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention when some of these other, eventual high profile coaches came out of Cincinnati, but it seems like obviously Fickell got them to a playoff. So that's, the best team that they've ever had. It just, I'm curious at how much of a rivalry it is to you guys, balancing that out with some of the other rivalries. So before we get there, though, I want to go through some notable games here, and I think I'm going to stick to the games that you guys were in school or recently after, because
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, you guys both growing up in Virginia, I don't know how big of fans you were until you ended up going to that college. So, and I'm sorry, beforehand, I don't remember. Okay, I think some of these have the Cardinals winning. Sometimes sometimes it's like the most notable games, like especially for Mike, and it was like these crushing like Auburn victories over Alabama, because that was the notable ones. So I don't think that's the case this time. So okay, October 14th, 2006. So if I had to guess, is what predates Jimmy, but not Kyle. I think
That was the year before. Yeah. I mean, basically, I was there from 27 to 2011, and then Jimmy was a year younger than me. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this one was the Bearcats took an early lead in the game, but the number 7 Cardinals, led by Bobby Petrino, was able to score twice at the end of the half, including a 1-yard pass by quarterback Brian Brom to take a 13-10 lead to halftime. And then late in the fourth quarter, the Bearcats had a chance to win with another pass in the end zone. However, it was knocked down by Cardinal cornerback Gavin Smart to preserve the win. So the Cardinals won 23-17, and it continued their 15-game home winning streak.
Yeah, was that so? 2006, Kyle. That's the year that we the offsides on the Rutgers field goal that year.
Yeah, that kept us out of basically the national championship, and we ended up going. We ended up still making it to the Orange Bowl, beating Wake Forest.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up, EJ. You know that year.
Yeah.
Hey, but you won that game.
We did. We did.
If we didn't win that game, we were probably playing in the Russell Athletic Bowl, or the Cheez-Its Bowl, or the Duke Mayo Bowl. So
Oh, gotta love the Duke Mayo Bowl. All right, so let's see here. Three more. So on November 14th, 2008, the number 22 Bearcats, searching for their first Keg of Nails victory in 6 seasons, came to Louisville to take on a struggling Cardinals team. The Cincinnati quarterback Tony Pike exited the game with an injury in the fourth quarter, and
broke his leg, right?
Yep. Former starter Dustin Grutza entered after Pike broke his leg, and led the game-winning 72-yard drive for the Bearcats to win the game 28-20. And the Bearcats would go on to win their first Big East Conference title that year.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Pretty sure we were there.
I was going to say, was that in Louisville?
It was.
Yeah, that's the one thing it doesn't say here.
Yeah, because we got, that, like you said, we were struggling, and I thought that was like, we were like, oh, hey, we're going to beat a, ranked team this year. And Tony Pike was, pretty good, pretty tall kid. And then it's like, oh, backup quarterback comes in and leads a 72-yard touchdown. It's like, it's about right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of preface it. And I don't know if you want to go into it later, but so like the time period that Jimmy and I were at Louisville was kind of sandwiched in between the highs of Bob Petrino, Brian Brom, and those great teams, going to the Orange Bowl. Yeah, Michael Bush, of course, and then comes in Steve Cragthorpe, or how I like to say,
the worst,
Steve Crapthorpe, and just a rotation. Like, I think we had more starting quarterbacks in like the 4 or 5 years that I was at Louisville than the Commanders have had for the last 10 years.
Oof.
And then I graduate, Jimmy graduates, and then boom, Teddy Bridgewater comes in.
I was still there when Teddy was there.
I was there for his freshman year. We didn't play as much, and then then Lamar. So like some of the worst seasons of Louisville football just so happened to be the times that we were there. So it is what it is.
Yeah, that's gotta be tough. I guess I never thought of it because I went to a small school as a Division II in football, so that, you know, the whole concept of like a big college football game is so foreign to me, like attending, right? Like obviously I have loved college football and watched it, but not actually gone consistently, been a season ticket holder, you know, as a student or anything live. But that's got to be rough. Like out of any 4 years, you know, like you could either get an amazing stretch or you can get a horrific stretch. And it sounds like you got maybe a little mixture of both.
Yeah, I feel like you got a couple more games that you're going to talk about, and I want you to talk about those. Those make me happy.
I know which one.
All right, so the next one here is December 5th, 2013, in a prime time Thursday night game with the number 16 Cardinals came into Nippert Stadium, that famous Nippert Stadium, to play a ranked 23 overall Bearcats. And Teddy Two Gloves here, my new favorite Lion, had a fantastic game in which he led Louisville to a 31-24 overtime victory over those Bearcats.
Yeah, I got a couple on this thing, but first of all, can you guys give Teddy Bridgewater a freaking actual? Why is he still number 50?
He chose number 50.
Yeah, he chose it. What are you breaking it down for us?
But I heard it's because you had no single digit or teen numbers, so like.
Yeah. So he hilariously took 50 because he's typically number 5, but David Montgomery, who was already on the team, has number 5. So he thought it'd be funny to do 50, but it was always like a tongue-in-cheek, never was going to keep it. And I believe he, in the last preseason game, he wore 17, which is fine, but I kind of wish he'd just go with 50.
I might buy you a custom Teddy Bridgewater jersey, number 50. But going back to this game, this was great. This is like, right now I'm in the prime, like you're describing, like I'm a student still. I'm also coaching high school football at this time. So what sucked is I didn't like see this game like from the beginning, but what I did is I still remember I went straight to I worked at a school that was right next to a bar, so right after I was done I went to that bar, and that was the rainy Thursday night game, right? I think that's why Teddy had the 2 gloves on for sure too, but that was like, and there it was a 2012 too. I believe he also had an overtime comeback win, but because 2012 and 2013, I believe. I think I have that on here. I can double check that. But these Cincinnati games, even though it's like, you know, he had some other bigger games. Like he really showed out in the Florida, Florida Sugar Bowl game when he kind of got knocked out by Bostic in the beginning with his helmet taken off, but then he came back. But I think Legend of Teddy is like, this is where he showed like, you're like, nobody can do anything on offense, but like Teddy's gonna make a play, and so that's really for me where like I'm looking at the game right now on the one that you're talking about. We were 11-1 at the time after that win, and Teddy threw the ball 37 times, had 23 completions, but we just didn't have much else going on, and he had 3 touchdowns, and that's
playing running back though. Like Dominic Brown was our running back at the time, who came in as like a tight end, so it's like we had nothing besides Devontae Parker and Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy, yeah, and Damian Copeland was a receiver. He was like 5'7", I feel like, but he was, just solid guys. But like, yeah, that's what I remember the most is like, man, because those games were like they just kept putting us against Cincinnati as either like Thursday night or Friday night. These weren't Saturday games, so these were like your night games under the lights. So it was really cool because I thought that's really like Teddy kind of really showed the heart. And I remember he like talked to his mom after the game, like I want to cry because I'm just so proud of this team. And it was like that was when Charlie Strong had taken over, and Charlie brought him, and I think Charlie really brought out like our prime years. So that's like you're talking right now. That's why I wanted you to talk about this game, man. This is like you're talking about we're peaking into Louisville football right here.
Yeah, I think this was the game. I think I saw it like a couple of weeks ago when people were like, I think it was like right when Teddy Bridgewater went to the Vikings or something like that. Somebody like showed this clip of Teddy. He like, breaks a sack, scrambles to the right, scrambles to the left, and like off of 1 foot chucks a ball into the end zone to Damian Copeland, and Copeland like drags like this left foot in the end zone. I think that was to get us into overtime. I think we ended up winning. I'm not gonna lie, those two overtime games kind of like mesh because they were just both
Yeah,
absolute.
they're back-to-back years too.
Yeah, in 2012 and 2013.
Yeah,
Man.
and the 2012 game, real quick, EJ, I don't know if you were going to talk about that or not. So
No.
both games were back-to-back overtime years, but I was looking at the stat book, and I have to like give a shout out to Louisville here. I'm not sure if this is when Travis Kelce, if he in the 2013, that would make him in the 2013 draft class. I can't remember, but he was obviously a Cincinnati. We'll talk about the Bearcats real quick. He was a Cincinnati Bearcat. Shut him down. 2 catches, 22 yards. That Louisville defense was stifling.
That
Yeah.
doesn't happen a lot. Yeah, so
I will say that Bridgewater, I remember when he got drafted by the Vikings, and I can say I obviously it's terrible like that. He had his major leg injuries, and that's what really kind of derailed him because he looked awesome. And it was definitely one of those things where when he was first on the Vikings, it was like shit. Like you already have to deal with Aaron Rodgers, and the Bears are pretty cyclical, when they become good. So it was like, oh, okay, the Lions are okay, like they're finally trending upwards, and it was like, shoot, like now you have Bridgewater in the division, and it's hard not to like him because he's just like the nicest looking dude. I think he is a nice dude, and he was just awesome. And it really stunk. I mean, it was obviously, fortunate for Lions fans that he didn't get to play too much in Minnesota. But I'm definitely glad that the Lions were able to get him now because, I mean, as far as backup quarterbacks go, I mean, he's definitely in the top 5, if not maybe the top 3. So, definitely glad for him. I love that Louisville has Teddy Bridgewater, and like you said, it was kind of just like watch out and Teddy will score somehow. And then you guys liked it so much, you were like, why don't we add a more athletic? Just why don't we add the athleticism, turn it up a little bit, and Lamar Jackson, enter Lamar Jackson. I love how you're like, oh, we kind of like this style quarterback. Let's get some more of them.
And then we get Malik.
So unfortunately, Lamar was never able to play in one of these. We never played Cincinnati when we had Lamar. So
so that would have been the next year, right? So 2014. Is that when Lamar came on or started for Louisville, or when do you guys remember?
Technically, Puma Pass. I don't know if you.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was a big recruit. He was between us, Auburn, and Alabama, and he ended up choosing Louisville. And he was the big time freshman quarterback that we had in. So I think he did one year, and then I'm trying to think about my coaches. So it was Charlie, and then was it did Bobby come back after Charlie, or was there somebody between Charlie and Bobby? I'm trying to remember, Kyle. Do you remember?
No, I'm trying to like it.
Yeah, but I just want to while I look this up and do stuff, you had a question that we haven't really talked about a little bit, so I just want to get into it a little bit. You asked about as insiders in this, what is the rivalry to us? And to me, it really kind of, obviously we, as in us and Cincinnati, I think we're more built as basketball schools that have started to gain traction in football. So I think it was really heavy year with basketball in terms of maybe more hatred. And, I don't know, you know this, DJ, college basketball real well, but those Cincinnati teams, they had some tough guys and they had some guys that wouldn't back down. And you remember the Cincinnati, Xavier whole debacle that one year. But we are an hour away. You just take one highway.
It's gonna be close.
Yeah, you take one highway to go up to Cincinnati.
70 miles.
Yeah, an hour and some change. And it's close by, and it's a drive that's worth you making. But it's just hard when you kind of rank your rivals. It's obviously Kentucky's number 1. And I would almost debate maybe a couple more for number 2, but you could go Cincinnati number 2, but it's just hard. It's we've been chasing each other with different conferences. We were in the Big East, and then when we were in the AAC, we were both together, and then when we left the ACC, and you could tell obviously some rivals hold more weight than others, as we continued with Kentucky, even though we've never been in the same conference before. But it's been hard to regain that Cincinnati rivalry. But I know I think everybody definitely gets pumped when you're talking Keg of Nails, but I think it even got a little bit more just hatred brewing between us two after the whole Satterfield thing. So, it's kind of ignited a little bit more. And Kyle, I don't know if you have any more about what you kind of think the rivalry is to you, but
yeah, like like I was kind of saying earlier, it's like it was kind of like the football rivalry kind of got stained like when we were at school, because Cincinnati, every time we played them when I was there in football, we were just getting run over by Brian Kelly and Tony Pike. So it's like that rivalry was like, of course we hated Cincinnati, but I do agree with Jimmy that it's like the Kentucky rivalry kind of tops it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Cincinnati, Memphis is another pretty big rival. And then, lately, Clemson has been a big, rival for football wise. But it is like just because like a lot of people that go to Louisville are, from the Cincinnati area. So like you'll walk around campus and there's still people like wearing Cincinnati hats. And I'm just like, it just like infuriates me. And I'm like, it was coming from a guy that wore Virginia Tech hat a lot. And,
sure.
At school. But like, we weren't really rivals. You can't be wearing a Cincinnati hat while you're going to class, at Louisville. So it's like,
no, I can appreciate that. But yeah, so I was asking because it's like I feel like it's a very similar situation to Michigan State. So clearly Michigan's our rival, but we have 3 other trophy games. So we have Indiana, we have with the old brass spittoon, we have Notre Dame with the megaphone, and then Penn State with the land grant. So it's like clearly Michigan is tops of that. But I remember like it was, as a fan, and even in good years, I mean, obviously in bad years, you just want to win anything, but even in good years, like it was fun to win those trophies and to know that you won those trophies. So that made me like, not necessarily like dislike, say, Penn State, but I definitely wanted to beat them. And I definitely disliked Notre Dame back in the day. And especially just because they're pretty close and there's a lot of Notre Dame fans in Michigan in general. But yeah, so I just like, I had a feeling that it was something like clearly Kentucky, the in-state rival. That's it. But because there's like this cool trophy, it was that. And I think you guys answered it. Like, was it something cool? Like, oh, Keg of Nails, like, oh, we won it. Like, it was a cool thing, or was it just kind of like, oh, didn't even know that there was a trophy, or you know what I mean? Like, oh, don't even care about that.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was something that you turned your attention to like at the end of the game. But I think like again, it didn't like, kind of, not to repeat the exact same thing Kyle said, but it wasn't as significant to us, I think, in the beginning of those years with Cragthorpe. But like, I think again, not when I think like the Keg of the Nails right now, I kind of just think like more recently, it's just kind of the explosion of like Louisville being of national relevance. And it's like that, it was a night prime time game. So I think, the, scheduling committee did a great job of like trying to, make something out of something that may not have been as well known as other rivalries and things like that. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to any trophy that you get to hold over your head. But no, it's something that we've held on for a long time, because especially with the break, and then understanding that we got to hold on to it after this bowl game again. And I think there's a lot of pride with the players and the fans behind having that and not getting rid of that type of thing. So
yeah, I think it's really big for the players, because like Cincinnati's recruiting the same guys that Louisville is. A lot of these guys from Kentucky, from Indiana, from Ohio, Southern, and like Illinois, like that whole like, what do you call it, pipeline, is like we're all getting recruited by the same guys. So like when they come in here, and like they're gonna want to beat Cincinnati, those Cincinnati guys are gonna want to beat Louisville. The other thing I want to mention, and I don't know if you know this, the biggest rivalry between Louisville and Cincinnati is actually our Steamboat River race.
No, I did not.
The Belle of Louisville versus the Belle of Cincinnati. So we have something called Thunder over Louisville, and every year during the Thunder over Louisville, the two river boats, there's steamboats basically, just race down the Ohio River, and it's always kind of kicks off the Thunder of a Louisville event.
I totally forgot about that. That's why we have you on this podcast today. That's a great poll right there.
Yep.
Have you guys attended a race?
I've seen it from being down. Like Thunder over Louisville is quite a scene. It's there's a million people down on the riverfront. It ends with a huge, air show and fireworks display. And, in the, morning time, daytime, they do the riverboat race. So I've seen it, and it kind of surprises me those riverboats can still actually move, because they're old. They look like they're going to sink at any minute, but
Yeah.
it's fun to see.
That's what
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm just picturing this, like, when I think of riverboat, I think of like casinos, like the docked, like, oh, it's legal because we're on the water casino. So then trying to like out of the Ozarks, all right? Or so
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of.
It's basically like, think about that casino in Ozark show. That's exactly what it is.
I'm trying to picture that actually like speeding down the Ohio River.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a little tidbit that's not necessarily as important, but just giving your fans and everybody a little bit more background is one little, like, if you're a local, you kind of know high school wise, like in Louisville we have two kind of top high school, and it's changed recently. Our public schools are starting to get a little bit, well, I'm not there anymore, but the public schools are getting a little bit better. But we have St. X or St. Xavier and Trinity are our top two kind of private schools that are usually kind of national relevance. Cincinnati has a St. X as well, so St. Xavier. So I think it was either Trinity played St. X all the time or St. X played St. X all the time. So it's even like within the high, a lot of those kids will come to Louisville and a lot of those kids will go to Cincinnati. So you even got a little bit of that, high school rivalry involved, kind of steaming a little early on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And I was curious about that because it's so close. So I've been to Cincinnati, which I actually really like that city. I was kind of surprised. I went because I'm trying to go to all the different ballparks, so needed to cross that one off my list.
When did you go?
So let's see here, 2018, I think 2018. So I went with my in-laws. And we did like a food tour of this city, and it was awesome. So we did more than just like go to the ballpark, but there was just a lot of cool, rich history, especially great beer city because of the German heritage there. And I was just really pleasantly surprised. Like it's nothing fancy, but I mean, I'm also from Michigan, so I'm used to kind of Rust Belt cities, and I love those types of cities. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I really like Cincinnati.
I've been there a bunch over the years because I'm 49ers fan. So anytime 49ers played at Cincinnati, and I also went to a couple of the games. They've really built up Cincinnati. I will give them props. I used to not really like it, and then I've been there more recently, and they've really done a good job.
Yeah, and I have never been to Louisville. I've only driven through Kentucky, so that is definitely obviously every whiskey drinker's dream is to do some sort of bourbon trail, but yeah, or the derbies and all the different horse races and stuff. Because what's the other one that's in Lexington?
Keeneland.
Yeah, Keeneland.
Yes. So that's also another one, and I'm pretty sure that they have a race before a night game this year too. If I was listening to this other betting pod that was talking about it, I think that the Wildcats have a night game, and so they were maybe gonna try and do horse racing during the day and a night game at night. But anyway, regardless, Kentucky's definitely a place where I feel like I need to know or need to go, and I feel like probably need to go with you guys because you guys will know all the spots.
We can show you around.
All right, so that's going to do it for us for the history and everything. So why don't we get to our rankings here? I want to hear what you guys think of this trophy. So on this episode or on this podcast, we do a ranking of all these trophies. So we do a look at the trophy itself on a scale from 1 to 5 on looks, and then the history. And then we also do the rivalry on a scale from 1 to 5. And those categories are the rivalry, the competitiveness, and then just kind of overall what tier you would put this in comparison to other trophies and rivalries across college football. So do one of you two want to start?
Well, since Kyle's new here, I'll go first just so he can kind of get a sense of how the rankings work and all that. So I'll go first if you don't mind, Kyle. Jimmy, if you're listening to me on the podcast.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
So number one is let's all go first off the looks, right? Looks is 5, easy 5, hard 5, like great looking 5. Yeah. I love just the fact that it's not, we've talked about this in the past when I've been with you guys. Like sometimes, the gold trophies are cool and all, but and if my man Mike was here right now, he's all about like anything you lift over your head. And like the first thing you see out of these pictures is everybody lifting it over your head. You get to hold a barrel over your head. You're grabbing both sides of it, and your logo showing on one side. I think it's clean with the old school kind of look. I know Kyle kind of compared it to a sorority painting, but I think it's a hair more professional than that, even though they do a pretty good job. But
I wasn't saying it in a mean way.
I think it's a clean looking trophy. I think it's so unique, not much like it. And the fact that it's still kind of like a keg type thing, and you still have the, history of like Louisville with drink, even though it's not a bourbon barrel or anything like that. It looks like a barrel, and it just makes me think of like what kind of things could you sneak in there, like, and put in there. So I'm going 5 on looks.
All right, what about the history?
So one thing I left out that I wanted to tell you real quick is just about the history is I told you about the fact that it was lost. But one other thing that I read here is, and you can kind of put this in the rival part too. It says, this is a local Louisville cardchronicle.com writer. He said, Cincinnati players excited and frightened by the sensation of touching the keg for the first time in nearly a decade, damaged it in 2008. So even though this is the replica, it still's got a little damage to it too. So history is, for me, I read that this is the longest actual rival that Louisville has, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that it beat out Kentucky. So a little bit of history with that. And I read it was Cincinnati's. It's their second longest rival. Their first longest rival. Do you know who? EJ, that's your trivia question.
It is with the University of Miami of Ohio for the Victory Bell, which we will be talking about in a few weeks.
Oh, what a good preview. I think when you guys talk about history, this isn't like one that's like going to be like history for like, oh, the most exciting games. I'm going to go with just because, it dates back pretty far too, even though that kind of screws Louisville because they didn't play much. I'll go with the 3 for history. And then the last one's rivalry, correct?
Yeah. So how about scale 1 to 5 on the rivalry, and then scale of 1 to 5 on the competitiveness of the series?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting competitive. And so let me change it. 3.5 for history. Okay. And then rivalry, I'm going to go with a 2.5. 2.5 for rivalry. I just think it's something like where it's not our top rival. It's also, again, something where we don't play very often. If you're going to be a top rival, you got to make sure you're scheduling each other every year. And we clearly, I don't know when the next time it's going to happen unless we both like play each other in a bowl game again. So I think that kind of damages that for a little bit. And then the competitiveness, I'm going to go with like we talked about, besides that last game, which we didn't even really hit on this, but this game was coached by nobody because, like you said, like Cincinnati lost their head coach, Luke Fickell, so they had like randoms there to coach that, and then Louisville's coaching staff was leaving to coach Cincinnati to head to Cincinnati, and so I literally think that we had Deion Branch was our head coach. That's right, Deion Branch was our head coach for that game. Not even a coach, just former player, and got the win. But I would say I'm going to go with I'll go with a 4 for competitiveness for it. So I'm going to go with a 4.
All right. And then would you put this in a low, a medium, or a middle, or a top tier as far as like all of that considered, in comparison to other rivalries across college football?
So I think the trophy carries it into a low top tier. I'm going to go top tier, but lower top tier, like I guess higher. So it's like if it's a scale of rank 1 to 10, I'd go higher up the scale. But I think there's no other, this is so unique compared to the other things. I think what doesn't put it at number, in the top 5 would make it the fact that they don't get to play each other all the time. But this is a trophy podcast. It's about the looks carry a lot of weight, and for me, I gave it a hard 5. So you got to be in the top tier if you're a hard 5.
I can understand that. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with the looks. Like, I completely agree. I'm going to give it a 5 for the trophy itself. Like I think people outside of Louisville and Cincinnati fans know it because of like the looks, and it's called the Keg of Nails. Like, yeah, Jimmy and I might be more familiar with like a keg of natural light, but like people still know the Keg of Nails around, college football, even though it's not as like historic as, Paul Bunyan's axe or the apple, whatever they call it now. But it's cool. I've talked about it already a bunch today. Like, it's unique. I love it. Yeah, I think Jimmy, like, some of the coolest pictures you see of it are, Lorenzo Molden holding it up in the locker room after the game, and seeing our helmet on there. It's really cool. We're talking.
What about the history of the trophy?
The history, yeah, it's going to be pretty low. I'd probably say, like a 2. If this was for basketball, the history is a lot. We've probably played Cincinnati in basketball over 100 times, and like that history is rich. Like, it's big. But because football, I think you said, it's maybe 50 games. I think it was like, 30 wins to 22 wins and something like that. So it's like the history around it, like, it's been around a long time, since 29, but like we don't have that rich history of playing each other every year. But it does have some cool stories. Like, we found out about it being lost and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I upped it. Yeah.
All right. So the rivalry.
I think you got to remember that, like, you don't have to remember, but like, Kentucky, we don't have professional sports. So like in Kentucky, professional sports, are college football or college basketball. Even high school is, I'd say, outside of Texas and Florida, high school football in Kentucky is huge. So it's like, I think the rivalry needs to be bumped up a little bit more, just because of how people are so committed and passionate about their college sports in Kentucky.
Okay.
So I'll say like a 3.5. Yeah.
Okay. And then the competitiveness of the rivalry.
The competitiveness, well, like I said, like basketball, I'd probably say a little more competitive, but yeah, we're kind of getting the fact that we've last year was the first time we played since 2013. They're really good games normally, but it probably go with a 2.5 there.
Okay. And then overall, where would you put this, in like a low tier, a medium tier, or a top tier?
I'm gonna say, I don't want to say the exact thing as Jimmy, because it kind of is like that. It is, but like, yeah, I would say a low mid tier, just because it is an iconic trophy.
Okay.
People know it, but it's not one of the top tier rivalry trophies.
Oh, okay. Come on.
Paul Bunyan's axe, I think, takes the cake for all of them.
Oh,
I don't know what the official.
I like Paul Bunyan himself. I don't know about his axe, but if you just give me Paulie B, then that's fine enough for me. Actually, Floyd's my favorite, the big fat pig. But
the platypus, who does the platypus one?
We have not gotten to the Civil War yet, but there is a platypus trophy out there in the ether. There's actually some really fun ones that we'll get to. We'll probably do the best of the rest of Power 5 next year, or Power whatever you want to call it. And then the following year will just be all the small school ones, because there's some pretty sick ones. All right. So for me, I'm going to go looks 4.5, and I will give you why I have not given it a 5, but it is awesome. It's right up there. We have a new segment that we're going to do right after this before we wrap up, and I'll be able to explain myself. And the history of it, I'll say a 3, because where it lacks in a rich history of stealing and losing and things like that, it is still was brought, in the first matchup in 1929. So that's a long time to have a trophy. And it has been rumored to be lost. at one point in time. So I think it's solidly in the middle. Like I agree. I wish there was more to it. There was more to like it was based off a battleship back in the day. Like there's so many cool things it could have been, but it's still at least I've seen way worse histories and I've seen way better ones. So I think it's solidly in the middle. The rivalry itself, I was kind of basing this off of you guys, but it seemed like it is at least both schools' second rivalry. And while unfortunately they haven't been able to play it in the last once in the last 10 years, or twice in the last 10 years, it seemed like there was, like you said, like they're so the schools are so close to each other. The recruiting is, you're recruiting the same players. So it just seemed to me, I'd say again, like a solid 3, where it wasn't, a hated rivalry, but clearly, you like Kyle, you were saying you were annoyed with people wearing hats. Like if you're annoyed that people are wearing Cincinnati hats on campus, you don't like that school at least a smidge. So
Right.
So I'll go with the 3 there. And then competitiveness, I'm gonna and again, some of this is subjective, so I'm gonna think of it more probably towards Jimmy's, in the sense that like when they do play, the games are competitive and like the overall series is pretty close, and it would be even closer if you take away, like you guys kind of talked about, when Louisville was, basically barely a college and barely had a football team and stuff like that. So that makes sense. So I think that. So I'm gonna put it in the not quite the top tier, but it's like the middle, the top of the middle tier for me. Like it's right on the cusp, and that is heavily because of what it looks like, because it is so unique and it looks awesome. So the new Oh, go ahead.
I just want last thing to just those listeners that like they both said middle tier, right? In that top tier. How like in the day and age of participation trophies, like everybody gets a trophy. One thing we forgot to mention that you said in the beginning, EJ, is this goes to the team. This trophy is based off being tough as nails. Okay. This isn't like some like, hey, good job. You have to be tough as nails. Okay. So like that to me just makes the trophy like, ooh, that gets me fine. That makes me ready for week 1. Like, does that not make you ready for week 1?
Not now. Jimmy needs them to be scheduled.
I'm about to run through a brick wall
with nails in my hand. Let's go.
Yeah. So the new segment we're going to try this year, because Mike and I have talked about it for years and might still do this, was what would we change that would make it a top tier or make it 5s across the board? So in some cases, and this can be beyond, in this particular case, I think the keg is almost there, or there in a lot of people's eyes, but like for Mike with the old wooden bucket, old oaken bucket, excuse me, he would say Indiana and Purdue should be playing for something other than a bucket. So it's just, so it could be, your answer could be like completely different than a keg of nails. Like, so it should be something completely different, or it could just be a tweak to the current trophy. So I'll start here. So the one thing I would change, so that's why I had it at a 4.5. I need it to be bigger and heavier. That's my thing. It was like a full size keg that required like 3 offensive linemen, it would be of a 6. So I think just because of the size, or like Jimmy had mentioned, if it was full of nails, like it was full of something and it was bigger and heavier, I'm all in. So that's the only dock and why I didn't have it a 5. So that would be what I would change. I think the idea of tough as nails and the idea of a barrel, I think that's awesome. I wouldn't change that, but I would just make it heavier, bigger, and full of nails. So what do you guys think? What would you change?
Yeah, so I'll go
anything.
first. Yeah, so if I'm basing it off of the trophy itself, like, yeah, I think I would add like nails have to be in the trophy. I don't know how much weight that would add to it, but I think there has to be like a rule where like the nails like fall out and the team that loses like has to pick up the nails and bring it back with them. Like the team that wins gets to bring back the trophy with them. It's something stupid like that. That would be awesome. But like I like the real thing that I would change is, I mean, like Cincinnati. I mean, it's unfortunate that Fickle left. I don't think this is biased, but I don't think Satterfield is going to do a ton. But like if they played more, I mean, if they played more often, if it was scheduled instead of us playing like Eastern Kentucky or what, whoever, know who Cincinnati, like the bull crap, first couple games that they played, but just keeping it going on, playing more often, and and then having the other team pick up the nails that the winning team drops down. I think that'd be great.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I would say I'll go like give it like it would be cool if it had like a richer history where it's like it was like a bourbon barrel that fell off of a barge in the Ohio River and like it was filled with nails and somebody dove down and had to pick it back up out of the water, something cool like with the Ohio River, because we're both really right on the Ohio River, so that would be cool. Like give it a little bit more, rich history, like a cool backstory. Like no one's alive from 1929. We could have just made up a story at this point to come up with something cool about it. So
maybe you guys should. It usually starts with alumni associations, like truthfully. Yeah. So maybe you guys should just make up a history and we'll just go with it.
Yeah.
We could do that. I like the picking up the nails. I'm gonna make that. I think gotta have.
All right, guys. Is there any parting thoughts before we end this? Anything else you guys want to say?
Well, I'm usually not on until like while the season's started. So my parting advice is let's gear up for some football. We've been waiting for this all summer. We've had to inherit some other mediocre sports and have to watch that throughout. But now it's big boy season. NFL, let's go Niners. I love the Lions. I'm excited to see what the Lions have to offer. The Commanders have Sam Howell. We'll see how that works out for them. And college wise, let's hope that college football for the last year where it's kind of normal. Let's have some hatred. Let's have some fact that you're screwing us by being a California school and going to the Big Ten and ruining this conference. Let's have some bad blood. Let's really pump up this season.
Yeah, I agree with Jimmy. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are like, especially like think about like the Big 12, even though like EJ said, like we're never going to actually be able to watch any of those games, but like those teams, like everybody's leaving. So it's like Washington State, they're going to be out for blood for every team that they play. It's the last season that they're really going to be able to do that. Like, I think it's going to be fun to watch a lot of those games. And, like Jimmy said, it's going to be next couple of years going to be weird. Expanded playoffs and then all the changes in the conferences. I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited. Hopefully I can make some nice bets and be profitable on that now that golf season's over, my main source of income.
Yeah, no, I really don't have anything to add. I mean, we're back. We are back, just like Texas football's back.
Thanks for having us, EJ. Thank you. Let's go Cards. Go Cards.
Go Cards, baby.
So this is just a reminder here that the game will not be played again this year, unfortunately. It's probably going to take a bowl game for them to play again in the near future, but hopefully with maybe an expanded playoff, teams will be more likely to schedule Power 5 non-conference games. So hopefully this game gets scheduled. So that's going to do it for us this week. Follow us on Instagram at whiskers.whiskies, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out our Saturday morning Pickem posts. And if you're brave enough to take us on, send us your bets for the weekend. Also, check out our new website, whiskerswhiskies.com, where our college football preview bracket is posted, and our ultimate sports travel log is also located on our website as well. So join us next week when we talk about the Bayou Bucket. So for Jimmy and Kyle, I'm EJ. Always remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey, barely enough.